Okay, 8th grade, we're going to get started on our next unit, Module 5, and all it talks about, the big basis point for Module 5, is functions. So between today and tomorrow, you're going to know what the definition of a function is, and we're going to start by relating it back to some of the stuff that you already knew when we were in our Module 4. Okay, so our question reads, suppose a moving object travels at 256 feet in 4 seconds. Assume that the object travels at a constant speed, that is, the motion of the object is linear with a constant rate of change. Those words should be popping out to you. We've talked about constant speed and constant rate of change. The question's asking to write a linear equation in 2 variables to represent the situation and use it to make predictions about the distance traveled over various time intervals. The part where it says write a linear equation in 2 variables, we've done this before. Remember, this is where we always put y over x. So let's actually take a look at our table. Okay. So if you look at your table, it's actually blank, but there is some information back in the question that we can fill in. We know that in 4 seconds, 256 feet are traveled. So I can set up my proportion y over x equals, remember my y, take a look at my table, distance traveled is referred to as y. So I'm going to put 256 feet on top. And in 256 feet, 4 seconds is being traveled, and 4 seconds is my x, so 4 goes on the bottom. So now when I'm here, I cross multiply. It doesn't matter what cross I do first. So I'm going to end up with 4y equals 256x. Remember, you always want to get your y alone. So in order to solve for y, I have to divide each side by 4. My 4's cancel, and I'm left with y equals, I'm going to simplify 256 divided by 4 in my calculator, 64x. So remember, in this question, sorry, the arrows are in the way. In this question, x represents my seconds, and y represents my distance, or my feet. So now I'm just going to plug in 1 second, 2 seconds, and 3 seconds to find my distance traveled. So I'm going to have y equals 64 is my rate, so that never changes. In the time I'm plugging in, my x value is going to be 1. So y equals 64 times 1 gives me 64. So that means in 1 second, 64 feet are getting traveled. I'm going to do it again, but this time I'm going to plug in x equals 2. So I have y equals 64x. And again, this time, instead of writing x, I'm going to plug in 2. So I have y equals 64 times 2. Do the math in my calculator, and I get y equals 128. So I can go ahead and fill in my table. That's 128. Last one, I'm going to plug in x equals 3. So I have y equals 64x. So I have y equals 64 times 3. Plug in 64 times 3 in my calculator, and I get y equals 192. So now, based on just the information in the table, I was able to write an equation, which was solved for y, and I was able to complete my table. We will go ahead and look and start at example 2 in class.